And then we'll go to our governors, DeSantis, Kemp, Master, and Cooper for updates on the state preparedness. And then Acting Administrator Gainer will talk about the federal effort to deploy resources and be ready. So we'll go ahead and start with the National Hurricane Center. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mr. President, wanted to give you the latest update on Hurricane Dorian, and it's all been about communicating that threat to the Bahamas and also along the southeast coast of Florida. So I wanted to thank you for being able to get some of that information out, retweeting and tweeting out information to make sure citizens are prepared for this storm. I wanted to start with the NOAA satellites, just giving us an incredible amount of information. You look at the structure. The structure is just a textbook case of a very powerful hurricane, 180 miles an hour, a dangerous situation, and moving west at 7 miles an hour. So a very slow storm. You can see the eye right here, very powerful, moving to the Bahamas, bringing devastating winds, devastating rainfall. You can see in some cases up to 30 inches of rain, and some of the storm surge getting up over 20 foot. So a very dangerous situation for them. And the sheer size of this storm really points to some of the impacts as we move along and get more information on the forecast. The hurricane hunters, I wanted to definitely take the time, the Air Force hurricane hunters and the NOAA hurricane hunters, we're all trying to get away from this storm. These are the men and women in the aircraft that are flying right through the middle of the storm out and running patterns for us to get the latest information. So these forecast wind updates on the intensity has been coming from the data that we're getting from them. So just want to thank them, true heroes, getting the information that we need to make the forecast. Speaking of this forecast, a couple things to note here. Really, we're looking at a forecast really slowing down. So we expect the storm to slow down with time, and some of these impacts stretching well away from the center. In this case, well over 100 miles from the center. So it's just not about the center. These impacts can stretch well outside that center as well. And the track's been really focused on a couple things with the track. We've had a high pressure system out in the Atlantic, and that's what's caused the system to continue to move west. However, a fast system, if we had a fast system, it would have continued to move in that direction. Because of this slowdown, the inherent characteristics of these storms, sometimes they just slow down, and it's allowing a small trough steered. These things are steered by things thousands of miles away. That is allowing it to slow down and eventually turn. The big question is, where is it going to make that turn? And that's why we have the forecast cone, such an important part of our forecast, because we really tell the general public not to necessarily just focus on that center line where that is. We tell them focus on the cone, because that's based on our average error over the last 5 years. So really the way to think about it is the center could be anywhere inside that cone. So that allows for solutions. So small changes could put this right along the coast. We can also see landfall moving northward. So that's why we really tell people to really pay attention and be ready with time. And we're going to be dealing with this hurricane all week. Look at the time frames here. This is 8 a.m. Monday. That's 8 a.m. Tuesday. Very devastating for the Bahamas since this is so slow. That's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we're going to see impacts in Florida, Georgia, and also the Carolinas with time. And the rainfall is something we want to talk about. We'll have storm surge impacts. We'll also have some rain in addition to the winds. And some of this rain, this is a message that we're keying with the general public. We see these values 6 to 8 inches and some places more, but little teeny changes in that track could bring some of these higher values onshore. Right now, we're thankful most of those are offshore, but a small change, just not small changes in that forecast. It could be a little wobble that causes that change, could bring some of these high values onshore. So we're keeping everybody ready. We're doing the interviews. We're talking to the emergency managers. I just can't explain what a tight relationship, close relationship NOAA has and the Weather Service with the FEMA, the state emergency managers, the governors, and also the local county and parish emergency managers out there. They're our partners, and we're all in this together. So that concludes my briefing, Mr. President.
Could I just ask you, 2 days ago, we were given a really comprehensive briefing, and they seemed to think almost every prediction was that it was going to go right through Florida and into the Gulf, actually right across Florida. Does that not have a chance of happening now, or what do you think? I mean, everything seems now it goes up north. What do you think the chances that it goes directly straight as the original predictions were?
Yeah, this well inside this cone. It just kind of gets the variability in that forecast track. And what's happened with time, once it slowed down, the forecast had to nudge to the north because now it has that influence with that trough. Teeny changes can make a big difference in the eventual movement of these storms. Literally thousands of parameters that we're trying to measure and put into the computer models to be able to get these tracks. So a small wobble, a small change can cause that forecast track to nudge a little bit. That's why there's so much uncertainty. And we spend a lot of time talking about the actual cone because, you look at the last 5 years and that's the forecast error possible with that track. So we try to communicate these uncertainties and it does happen, especially when you're measuring thousands of parameters, trying to get that into the models, you can have these small changes.
How certain are you that it'll go north?
Every single computer model that we have is pulling this to the north. But the big question we have is about where that center is going to go. And that's why we're really trying to communicate the edge of that cone. That landfall literally could be right on the coast, anywhere in Florida, and even up the Carolinas. We could see a landfall too soon where you can have some damage right along the coast. But we're trying to communicate, even if it's offshore, look at the size. I mean, remember the NOAA satellite, how big the storm is. Even if it's offshore, that could bring some devastating impacts even on the coast. We're trying to communicate that size and really try to focus people on this large system and not just the center.
Great job. Thank you very much. Kevin.
Mr. President, we are joined today, as you mentioned, by governors from Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. We begin first with Governor DeSantis from the state of Florida. Sir.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Mr. President, for all you've done for Florida. Obviously, you've done a lot for the Michael aftermath, which those folks are still rebuilding. Now we have Dorian and...
Back to the National Hurricane Center. This is Ken Graham in our operations area. The official clock says it's 11 o'clock. We're looking at the latest information on Hurricane Dorian, and there's a lot to talk about here. So just leaving this image in the background, it looks like the eyeball starting to reach the Bahamas already. So it's already starting to see some reports of a lot of wind, and it's not going to be moving very fast at all, and eventually moving over to Grand Bahama and even moving slower. Some of the latest information that we have right now, we're about 205 miles east of West Palm Beach. Winds 180 miles an hour. So right now, one of the strongest storms in history for this region. So that's a very important statistic to talk about the power of this storm. Moving west at 6 miles an hour, a little slower than before. Pressure down to 913 millibars. So very powerful. We got the NOAA hurricane hunters out there now going back and forth. Air Force working it. The hurricane hunters just real heroes, giving the data that we need to keep you all posted on the latest information. So some of the changes as well. We got the brand new graphic literally just updated minutes ago. We got a couple new things to talk about, a hurricane watch, and just now got it a little bit ago, so it is out. Check our website, hurricanes.gov, to get the latest information on all these tracks. The hurricane watch has been issued on the Florida coast north of Deerfield Beach to the Volusia-Brevard County line. So we really could start seeing the impacts of the potential for some hurricane force winds. And also the storm surge watch has been issued north of Deerfield Beach to the Volusia-Brevard line as well. And some of the values that we're looking at, Volusia-Brevard County line to Jupiter Inlet, some of these areas could get 4 to 7 feet of storm surge. So we're going to keep this updated as quick as we can. The information is changing by the minute on this storm as we really continue to keep an eye on it. Let's go over the latest track. Not a whole lot of change in the track other than you can see how close we are to the Florida coastline there, and that's really important because we keep hearing people talking about is it on the coast or off the coast. The reality is it's in the cone. This whole area is absolutely in the cone. So any one of these areas, if you start stretching from this watch area up the entire Florida coast, even into Georgia and the Carolinas, you could probably see impacts. You're going to see impacts. I mean, we're really confident that the impacts are going to occur, but you can also see the center. So we got to remember that center could be in any one of these areas, and that means you could have landfall of a major hurricane. You can have it go right up the coast. You can have it go inland as well. So preparation is everything in this case to really keep an eye on this. And please remember, such an important point that we make all the time. It's so important to realize it's not a point. We're not talking about a point. Look at the tropical storm force winds, and that's the hurricane force winds. Notice something? Yeah, the wind field is getting larger. So that's the part of the problem as we start slowing down, stalling, a very devastating situation for the Bahamas. So we're keeping an eye on it. We'll keep you posted. This is the National Hurricane Center, Ken Graham, keeping you updated with the latest.